is the podcast for Narrate Church. Narrate Church meets every Sunday at 9 and 11 a.m. at the Grand Street Theater in Helena, Montana. For more information, visit www.narratechurch.org.
If you're a guest with us, welcome. We're thrilled that you're here. We're a church that really tries to organize ourselves around this idea of mattering. We value Sunday morning and the opportunity that it gives us to worship, to meet people, to connect with people, to hopefully be challenged ourselves and grow in our relationship with Christ, or even grow in our consideration of Christ. And yet we're constantly trying to remind ourselves that to be the church doesn't just consist of gathering on Sunday, that a week is 7 days long, and quite frankly, the real classroom and the real work of being the church happens when we leave here. Turns out it's pretty easy to be a Christ follower sitting here. It's out there where it's tough. And so the way that we're constantly trying to talk and wrestle, and the way we really try to bend the culture of this place is, I think, first and foremost, validating those everyday opportunities. It seems that oftentimes what guys like me and churches like Narrate are guilty of doing is saying that the only Christian, quote-unquote, Christian work is the stuff that happens under the umbrella of the church, and we work really hard to go, whether you're a carpenter or you work for a school or whatever, like you're surrounded by opportunities. And part of what we hope happens here on Sunday morning is that you're in some way awakened to the opportunities that you have to really give expression to who Jesus is and what he's about by the way you treat people and by the way you exist in the context that you exist in the majority of your life. And then from time to time, we like to scatter together. What we mean by that is every month or so we like to get together and give expression to Jesus and his character and his priority. By the way, we bring tangible benefit to the community in which we sit. Borden Helena is an expression of that, and we've talked some about that. You can find more information elsewhere with regards to that. That's a collaborative project that we're doing in our community, just trying to get the awareness out there of the stuff that's going on. The wood splitting on December 1st is another expression of that, and that's going to be a blast. If you're someone that's new to Narrate and is looking to connect relationally and you feel like we all stare at our feet and run out the back door, it turns out that most of us are just a lot more comfortable socially when we're actually doing things versus just staring eyeball to eyeball. So that Saturday would be a great opportunity for you to meet some people, and we have a blast, and you don't have to be a woodsman to do it. And Sarah's created a new iteration to that this year where the clients from LEAP are actually going to come pick up the firewood while we're splitting it. We love the relational component of that. And we also love that we're going to be pushing El Caminos out from, we're going to end up with some grand marquee down there, and we'll be hooking it up to some trucks and pulling it out and getting stuck, and it'll be memorable, and there you go. And the other component of the mattering thing is, if you've been with us for as long as the last couple of years or as recently as this last September, you know that we've been talking about that part of the opportunity that God gives us as the church is mattering to poor people, to put it just bluntly. And my opinion is there aren't any poor people in the United States. I know that could be offensive, but from a biblical sense, we have people that have needs. We don't have poor people. And so what we've been drilling down on for a while, I feel like I just opened a can of worms in that statement. If you'd like to explore that statement more, Jack Oberweiser will be up here after the service, and he'd love to engage you in deep theological discussions on that. Anyway, so where we've been wrestling is, Lord, how would you have us drill down? We recognize that there's lots of needs internationally, and we would love to be a part of just one of those. We're not so naive as to think we can change the world, but we'd like to matter in some tangible way. And some really neat things have unfolded in the last 6 months or so with regards to an opportunity in Ecuador. And what we love about it is it's an opportunity. It's a local international opportunity. If this is home to you, you know that Jack Oberweiser is one of the best missionaries in town, and where he goes, we follow, and we love the opportunity to partner with him and with Carroll College. And then more recently, we've met a couple named Bob and Nareem, and you'll learn more about them this morning. And so really what we're going to do this morning is hear from Theresa, and she's going to just kind of unpack. We sent her on a research trip a couple weeks ago. If you're with us last week, you remember me whining about my wife being gone. It was all that stuff, so she's going to unpack that experience.
Thank you for letting me be here this morning. I'm not naive to think that everybody here in the room is as excited about helping on an international level as I am. Maybe you came this morning and you were thinking, okay, I'm going to go to church and I'll get some personal encouragement. I'll get some spiritual guidance. I'll get some of my issues and problems and struggles and things that I'm trying to work out and struggle through. I'll get some answers for that. So maybe you're sitting there and you're slightly disappointed, saying, great, I'm going to hear about another world and another country and another place in the world, and it's not going to help me today. It's not going to help me with what I was hoping that I would get out of this morning. And so I listened to a podcast the other day. It's an HBR interview with Cassie Monger, and it was interesting because it says, press for time, give some of yours away. And so essentially her and her colleagues are doing research that is based on happiness and life fulfillment, and they want to know what would produce the most fulfilling life, if you will. And so there was a section of their study that they were talking about monetary fulfillment, if you will. Like people that gave a portion of their money away actually felt like they were richer. They had the perception that they were more wealthy. And so Cassie had taken that concept and said, what about time? Time is a measurable thing. What if people are always pressed for time? What if we gave a bit of our time away? Does that change our perception? Does it make us feel like we have more time? And so this podcast is really worth, it's only 9 minutes long. So if you have like a 15-minute break at work, it is very worth your time to just listen to it and kind of process and chew on it for a little while. Because she briefly touches on their study where they took a group of people, one of the studies that they did, and they had them do something for 10 to 30 minutes that was personal, something that would benefit them, something that would help whatever they have on their list of things to do. And then they took a group of people and they said, spend 10 to 30 minutes on somebody else. Shovel someone's walk, or help somebody with an essay, like a high schooler with an essay, or go help serve food at the homeless shelter, something like that. And they found what was somewhat surprising, but somewhat what they expected. This first group of people had no change in their perception. They felt like, I still don't have time for anything. I still feel pressed for time. But however, what they found with the second group of people is that they felt like they had more time. Their perception of time is that they had more. And not only did they find their perception of time they had more, they also found that they were more productive in the actual work they had to do. Aside from that 30 minutes that they were doing the helpful activity, they were more productive in their actual work efforts. And they left with more confidence that they were accomplishing things, that they had a higher ability to accomplish things. And so that's just something to offer. Maybe this morning you can just kind of take your mind off of what you're struggling with or the issues that you have or whatever you're trying to work through, and maybe take your mind off for a few minutes and think about some other people and their problems. And it might help give some insight to what you have going on. Also, www.givingwhatwecan.org. Maybe you're a skeptic and you're like, what, foreign aid and helping other countries, that's a great thing, but I think that we need to stay local. We have lots of problems here, and we need to solve those problems, and we need, my resources are better used here on a local level. And I'm not here this morning to argue, to present points, to say, this is what a good Christian does, and if you don't do it, you're not a good Christian. I'm not here to argue both sides, because there's all kinds of points. Yes, we have needs here that need to be addressed. We need to help people here. It's totally true. We also, by being, citizens, or if we live here in the United States, we benefit from being a country that's developed. We benefit from wealth, essentially. And so whether you're a Christ follower or not a Christ follower, we still have to deal with what kind of responsibility do I have to help those other countries to develop and grow. So we still have to deal with that issue. So this is a website that I found really resourceful when I was kind of struggling, mentally processing why it is that maybe we should go and serve the poor abroad. And so maybe, if you guys visit that, it's not a religious affiliation website. It just simply addresses some of the myths and things with the concept of foreign aid. Maybe I had one more thought, as far as if you're an intellectual, you're a philosophical person, and you're thinking, okay, great, this morning I'm going to sit here and I'm going to hear about, these other people in another place, and I'm going to bombard you with information and images, but I'm not talking about theology, I'm not talking about concepts, I'm not talking about anything really super intellectual, and maybe that's a disappointing thing, and you're like, great, I'm sitting here and I'm really unengaged now, and perhaps you might want to think about what is intellectual assent, what is theological and philosophical debate and reasoning and words and intellect without action? What is it without any kind of living it out? I mean, that's a bent that Narrate has, is that we can say a lot more with what we do. Any person, any individual, any group of people. A lot of times it's more effective and you say more with what your actions are than what your words are. And so, as Adam was saying, that's why I'm here this morning. I'm just going to share a fraction of what Narrate is going to be focusing on. We still are going to stay local. We're still going to meet the needs and want to help on a local level. So this is just a fraction that we want to take some responsibility, in helping the poor on an international level. And that starts with scattering in another hemisphere. I did not expect to have the connection with the people down there that I had. We got in at about 2, 3 in the morning. I got to lay my head down on a bed, and then we got up at 8 o'clock, and we woke up and met this group of people here who were scattering. Just like we scatter here, Narrate gets together, we volunteer our time, we volunteer our resources, and show up on a Saturday and do something. That's what they were doing on a Sunday morning. And the middle woman, Maria Elena, she is a social worker at a nutrition center down there, and she went to visit a little girl that was at the nutrition center with some malnutrition issues. And she did a home visit in order to just kind of go home and see what they're doing. And she saw their living environment and went, wow, we need to help these people. They need education. They obviously had some poverty issues, but they also were lacking a lot of the understanding on the importance of cleanliness and good nutrition and clean water. So they had garbage and trash everywhere. And so this group of friends, they said, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and start. We're going to pick things up. We're going to clean them up. We're going to put them in a wheelbarrow. We're going to educate them on clean water and clean, the food for their children. The kids had scabies. They had bed bugs and things were not well taken care of. We also ran into 2 poisonous snakes there. I had no idea this was going on. And people are running around with machetes and they're chopping off heads. And I was like, what's happening? And they showed there were 2 poisonous snakes here. It's like, oh, thanks God that the kids didn't get bit, right? So they don't have a great sanitation system there. So we took wheelbarrows of garbage and brought them out on the street and lit it on fire. That's what you do when you have garbage there. And so the neighbors were looking on, and obviously they have some great structures, made of concrete and everything. And their house, you guys saw in the picture back, is made out of metal and palm tree leaves and wood and all kinds of cracks for water and that sort of thing. They also, Noreen rode a bike while she was there. Had a little bit of fun with that group of people. And, the whole day, all of Sunday was dedicated to working and helping this family. This was their bathroom. Obviously not sanitary by any means. And so that group of people took their resources and said, you know what, we need to go ahead and educate them and create a clean, more of a structure for them to help them keep that mindset. And there's a follow-up plan where Maria Elena is checking on them and helping them and saying, hey, are you going to continue to live like this? Remember everything that we showed you? You got to keep this up for the health of your kids and the health of your family. So there's some follow-up there. Another thing I wanted to share is about the wheelchair, the travel of the wheelchair. You guys are awesome. You guys gave, some little gifts that we could bring down to the children, which was wonderful to make them feel valued and have just kind of a special moment. And we also had 3 wheelchairs that were donated, so good job to you guys. Unfortunately, we were only able to get 1 for various reasons down to Ecuador all the way there. But the one that we did get was the specialized wheelchair. So that's the important part. There's a family here locally that their son didn't have any use for the wheelchair anymore. And so we brought it down. There it is in our apartment. And it made some travels, hit the interstate on the back of a truck, and went through town. Oops, sorry, that was fast. Hit some palm trees. At one point, I had bananas in the back of the wheelchair. I was like, that is awesome. It came from Helena, Montana. And here it is. They just cut the bananas off the tree and threw it in the back of the truck. So we sent those pictures to that family that donated the wheelchair so that they could get to see that. We ended up in an orphanage. There is a not-for-profit, non-governmental organization called FASCA, and underneath of that, they have multiple projects, and so they have a handful of orphanages, and this is one of them. This orphanage has like 8 to 10 kids, and it has 2 kids that have cerebral palsy. They're actually brothers. One of them is a little higher functioning than the other one, and so this is Juan. He spends a lot of his time in bed. They do have a normal wheelchair, an average wheelchair that they put him in if they need to make him mobile in some way, but he often, he's not supported and he'll fling himself kind of forward and out of it, so they have to tie him to it, and they tie him to a board, and that's kind of the main way they get him around. He's heavy. So the staff was very excited. We fit him inside of it, educated the staff on how to use it, and they were thankful because it makes their job easier also. Obviously, he has just a little bit of room to grow, but we brought him out, and he got to look and see outside and kind of be a part of things. And he just sat there and was looking all around. It was very great. It was exciting. So I'm not going to get to cover all the information this morning. FASCA is not an organization that Families with Heart is under. Families with Heart is independent of that. And but it's definitely the place that has the connection. Adam had mentioned Bob and Nareem O'Leary. Nareem is from Peru, and then lived in Ecuador for 12 years. And this is the organization that she worked for, and it's the connection, if you will, for the families with heart. And then she met, in all kinds of circumstances, I'll let you find that out, but she met Bob O'Leary and then moved here to the States, and then we get to benefit from being friends with her. But I'm just going to kind of run through a few of the small projects that FASCA covers. One of them is a place for special needs adults. So most people don't want to employ special needs adults, much less in a country that kind of shoves them away in a room and doesn't care for them. They may, their families, they may have just eliminated, have all kinds of excrement on themselves and hang out in the room because the family just doesn't care. They don't take care of them. And so Fienbar would come along and he picks up a few of these people in the local area and he brings them to work with the cocoa beans. They have these trees that grow cocoa plants, and they take them and they dry them and they process them, they create chocolate out of them, and then they sell them. So it helps, kind of feed itself, if you will, kind of in this cycle. They also have bananas and chickens and other ways that they work at supporting themselves. And the end goal is this construction project, that essentially will be like a group home for adults, special needs adults, in those situations where the families are not really engaged in caring for them. And so there are multiple countries that are involved in helping Ecuador to develop. I ran into people from Ireland and Germany and Canada and the United States. And so lots of countries are others-minded as far as helping countries to develop. And so that's under process. They don't have any residents yet. They're not quite ready for that. The Nutrition Center for Medical Assistance, Serene or CRN, that's the place where Maria Elena, that she works. That's also another area that provides some basic education, some basic medical care, some what we would call clinic work. They have a laboratory there. They can do some minor testing with their supplies there. They obviously, with the malnutrition kids, they would find all kinds of intestinal parasites. And they also have some physicians there that do, a pediatrician and a gynecologist, and so they do care for the mothers and the children together and do some education there. That's one of the main points. They have medications. They also do some minor treatments. But education is the main focus. It's mandated that parents attend these classes, that they learn how to take care of their kids and feed their kids and give the appropriate nutrition that they need. And they also feed them. Their food there was better than any food I had anywhere, any restaurant. It was phenomenal. They also grow soybeans and fruit and make soybean milk. They have dormitories there in case families can't afford to come back and forth every day for this education and this food and these clinic visits. They have places for them to stay. And so that's another project underneath FASCA and another connection on how kids with needs, special needs, are met. University of Kentucky Healthcare Center, that's another place. In Santo Domingo particularly, Puerto Quito is a little smaller, it's kind of in the same region, but if you want any kind of medical care, you have to travel down into town to the hospital. There's not a lot of distant clinics in areas, and travel is a challenging thing for people who don't have a lot of financial resource. And so the Kentucky University said, hey, you know what, let's go ahead and in a specific community, they have some real needs there, let's go ahead and build a clinic. And so they did, and they staff it, and they do some basic clinic care there. It's kind of a risky part of town. They were actually held up the week before we were there, and some money and computers were stolen. So it was one of those, when we were doing the family visits there, they were like, andale, let's hurry, let's get out here, because it was getting late in the night, and they were kind of nervous. But we also visited the local jail. Here's a little bit of information. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, a quote of something that they found when they were doing some research. A severe consequence of the deficiencies in the administration of justice is the situation of the social rehabilitation system of the country. There are numerous persuasive problems within the penal system, which stem largely from delays within the criminal justice system that lead to the overcrowding of the prisons. And then from that, there's inadequate provisions of resources to meet their basic needs. So, the infrastructure doesn't fit all the people, the sanitation, nutrition, and access to medical care, it's not always provided. So in short, what that means is they don't always get a meal every day. The government doesn't supply the food for sure. And so essentially they're relying on the generosity of the churches and the charities in that community to provide a meal for the people that are there. Today, on that day, we were lucky. And Noreen kind of worked her magic with the front guy because we got to take pictures. And they were not overcrowded. That's another reason why we got to go visit. Jack talks about, a visit that they made last year to the jail. And the amount of people that were there, they were like, no way, you cannot take pictures of these conditions. So we went ahead and took the food inside. And then there's a little video where they make him sing a thankful song before we pass out the food. There was a woman and her baby in jail. So it doesn't matter the age that you are, you're just enmasked with the men, women, and children all together. So for example, this woman, whether she didn't have somebody to leave her child with when she was brought then to the jail, the child came with her. And so that's the environment that they're in. I'm not sure about the situation and abuse situations and such, but that's her behind bars. It's not just a picture of some woman that happened to be there visiting. Like she's in jail with her baby there. So we went ahead and handed out the food and the juice in bags, and they ate with their hands. A few people had, a few plastic spoons that they were stashing. We ran into 3 14-year-old boys that happened to be there. And so, we have challenges here with the penal system and follow-up. We went out on the street, and there was a guy that just got released, and he was huffing on a can as we were driving away. So that's a bummer, but at least, those people got a meal that day. We're going to talk about sponsorships next. That has to do with Families with Heart. And Families with Heart, it starts local. This is not an organization that's far off that we just kind of picked and said, hey, let's be a part of this organization because they look like they would be good to be a part of. It actually started because Jack Oberweiser introduced Bob and Noreen to us about a year ago. Adam and I met with them. And essentially Noreen said, hey, would Narrate be interested in helping Families with Heart? Would they be interested in helping this organization that wants to supply therapies and needs of special needs kids? And Adam's like, sure, we can kind of check it out. And so that's what ended up with me going down and meeting the people that are involved, meeting some of the families that are in need, seeing the situation, making sure that Narrate's effort and resources are used in a responsible way. We're not just flippantly saying, yeah, let's be a part of this, and who knows, maybe things are not being held accountable for on the Ecuador end. So we went down there to check it out. Approximately 13% of population in Ecuador has some type of disability. As a comparison, in the United States, that's 14%. The major difference is that here in the States, we have much more resource as far as resources for those people that are disabled to get help. We have laws that say, there's equal opportunity with some disabilities to employ them. We have laws that make sure that our streets are able for wheelchairs to, come up and go through, and buildings they can, take the ramps and such. The Disabled World News, that goes on a global level and tries to fight for the rights of disabled, they reported that Ecuador has a constitution that specifically addresses the topic of disability rights. They have the paper that looks good and says this is what should be happening for people with disabled. Unfortunately, all these situations of poverty, social and architectural barriers, neglect, high levels of unemployment, and lack of access to training and education are just a few of the obstacles that persons with disabilities must overcome. And so that is kind of what Families with Heart really cares about, is saying, the government is working on progressing, the government is doing its thing, but you know what, there's still people that can't just sit around day after day. There's still children that can't sit around day after day and not get their basic needs met or get their therapies that they need. So that is, what Noreen is passionate about, that there is follow-up and that there is a connection between the sponsor and the child themselves. So I'm just going to share our sponsorship story. I understand that my children were telling everybody that I went down and made a son for us. And Adam was not okay with that. And however, he's the only man I desire to make sons with, and we made 3 very beautiful sons. So, but we did add another child to our family, if you will. The Latino culture, their perspective is, this is like a godparent, if you will. Like, this sponsor is helping me to care for my child. This is an important person in their view, their understanding. It's not just, okay, great, somebody from some rich country is giving me money, wonderful. It's a serious thing that the families take there. So this is Alejandro. I saw this picture and I thought, I think he's the one that we want to support. And if anything, he could use that wheelchair, right? Like, he's a special needs kid. Obviously, he had some support issues. And so we hauled this wheelchair all the way down there, which is even an hour from where we were staying. And I get there, and that's him. He doesn't need a wheelchair. He's mobile. He scoots on his bum, and he moves around. And so I was like, well, he doesn't need a wheelchair. I guess we hauled it for nothing. Getting to go and visit him there rather than see a picture made a big difference. He also has a sibling that has cerebral palsy also. She's much higher functioning. She was there in a minute, for a second in the video there. And his first time we came, his siblings were taking care of him. There weren't any parents there, and they are very loving. Like, there were 5 kids in this family, and they loved each other and Alejandro, and everything was really, it was a positive atmosphere. So not all the cases are this poor child, and look how horrible everything is for them. It's just the simple fact that for whatever reason their circumstances changed and they couldn't make it to therapy. Obviously he went to therapy at some point because he's walking, right? That doesn't happen just on its own normally in those situations. And so what is going on that he hasn't been going to therapy? Why hasn't he been there for 4 months was our report. And so we went a couple days later, and we found him kind of hanging out, and we were looking for the parents. And the dad happened to be home. We woke him up. He had worked a night shift there, and so we said, hey, can you take us to meet the mom? We want to talk to you guys. And so it was the Day of the Dead, which is a holiday where everybody goes to the cemetery, and they remember their loved ones together as a family. And they were serving food at this location, trying to earn the money that they could. And so Norim sat down with Anna. Anna is the name of the mom of the family, and the father was Alejandro also. And she sat down and she just kind of asked. She said, what's going on? How come you haven't been taking Alejandro and his sister to therapy, and what is going on? And she just explained that some of their circumstances changed, and it cost $40 a month for them just to be transported to the therapy. So the government will cover most of the therapy costs. I think it's like 50 cents a session. But to get there, cost them $40 a month for the 3 of them to travel twice a week. And she said, I'm sorry, we can't get there. We don't have a mode of transportation, like a car, to get us there, so we have to take the bus, and that's how much it costs. And so, Norim explained, hey, this is Theresa, her and her family, they want to support and be a sponsor for this kid. And her response, like her face, I'm just standing there ignorant, I don't know what they're saying, And she looked at me, and it was this something changed, and it was a serious thing. It was like, her? This is the woman in the family? Yeah, it's her. And so we went ahead and we gave her some money. We gave her some money for the month of November that said, hey, you use this money and you can travel, and get your kids to therapy and come back. We have the email of the therapist there in Puerto Quito. And if we hear back that, yes, you have been going to therapy and Alejandro has been there, then you can take this paper and you can go to the padre, the father of the town. Is very Catholic, so they kind of look over the town. And they'll be able to, they'll give you money for the month of December then. And she said, okay, I'll do that. And actually, we heard back just since we've been in the States that from the physical therapist, he reported, yes, Alejandro has been coming for therapy. So she's been doing it. I mean, they're loving parents. It's a loving family. They were just in a rough situation and needed someone to take the time to push them to do that, because the government doesn't have any kind of system where they're following up on the care of special needs kids at this time. So, and these are a couple, the fathers there of the city. It's Bob's cousin. And so that's how Bob and Norim met, if that has anything to do. But they're very trusted people that, is another connection for families with heart down there. So afterwards, if you are interested in sponsoring a kid or have more questions about Families with Heart, Norim is going to be down here, and you're welcome to come down here and chat with her and ask her questions. If at some point you're just kind of like, well, I'll think about sponsoring a kid, I think I might want to be involved. There's these cards that are kind of all over. If you just grab a card, use it, kind of pray over it or whatever, there's our contact information there. However, Norim's phone number I happen to get wrong. So I'm sorry, but the emails are correct, and you can call me. My phone number's on there, but use these. If you feel pretty serious about committing to sponsoring a child, we have four people left, special needs people. And so that we just ask if you're serious about it, then go ahead and take one of these cards. But at this point, we don't want to have these cards floating out all over and have 3 people praying over sponsoring one person. Does that make sense? So only take one of those cards if you're pretty serious about committing. Otherwise, please feel free to get in contact with us later. Another avenue that Narrate is looking at is actually making a scattering opportunity in Ecuador, meaning let's take some of our people and let's go down there and let's build a home for that family, or a family that doesn't have a structure that is clean and safe for them, let's go down there and build a house. We can do that in a week. Also, there's some hairstylists talking among themselves. Maybe we can go down and help to, get rid of some of the lice and educate them on hygiene on that level, get some haircuts. Even that kind of simple activity is a really big deal. And then also there's a medical component that is developing. We have some people locally that are interested in doing like a medical missions component, if you will. And when Nareem and I were down there, we found that there is a mobile unit. It's like a great big motorhome that you can actually perform surgery in, which kind of blows my mind. Really? But it's really. You can bring it, and you go to the communities, because they'll have one central hospital in a large city, but they expect everybody to come there. So not only do you have to get transport, you have to get all these things covered to show up at that facility and get your family to come and pick you up and take care of you there. So they have this mobile unit to go out into communities and to be able to perform some simple or more minor operations. And so we're looking into, kind of a medical component on that end. So if you're interested at all, you think, oh, maybe in a year I could do that. We're thinking October. That's a little flexible as far as time frame if the majority of the people that are interested, want to change that. But it's looking like October 2013. And so in January, we will have a meeting, like an informational meeting on how much does that cost, what kind of immunizations do I need, what kind of details would be involved in a trip like that, or a missions trip, if you will. But there's also a sign-up sheet in the back. If you want to go ahead and put your phone number and your email, I'd be more than happy to get in contact with you and kind of discuss kind of where we're going there. So thank you for your time this morning. Again, talk to Nareem if you have sponsorship stuff. Jack Oberweiser is here for this service, and he'll be down here. He's taken a group. He's been down there a couple times with Carroll students, working with a dentist and doing some work down there. So if you have any questions about the times that he's gone down or his upcoming trip in January, he is more than happy to talk about Ecuador and his experiences and stories there. So we'll go ahead and pray. Thanks, God, for this morning. Thanks that we get to struggle and challenge through the responsibility of living in a country that is wealthy and developed. And I just ask that you help us to struggle through that you would bless everybody that came this morning, that they would leave encouraged, and that their afternoon would be filled with gratitude for what we have and where we are, God. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, so brain is spinning, as I'm sure yours is. What I really want to point out is, like, this is local as much as it is international, right? Like that's what excites me about it, is this isn't us going like, hey, we are obligated to go find our thing, so let's go find our thing. This is, a couple years ago we started sending stuff with Jack on some of the mission trips that he was leading with Carroll kids, and that led to this connection, and then there's this couple living here that's starting this organization, and so I love it. It's every bit as local as it is international. There's only 4 families left, which is remarkable because we started with 15, right? So it turns out the 9 o'clock service, yeah, buddy, I don't want to start a competition, but anyway. And we'll have more. Like that's part of, this deal's just getting rolling. They will have more. They're going in January, so Nareem need to come back with about 30 of them, right? And when you come back, and she's not listening, she's sleeping. So anyway, she'll be up here, over here. If you'd like to talk to Jack or Theresa, they'll all kind of be up here. Sure, love you guys. Have a fantastic Thanksgiving. Next Sunday, we're going to start a series, our Advent series called Wait. Should be a blast. Love you guys.
For more information on Narrate Church, visit www.narratechurch.org or download the mobile app, now available for iPhone and Android.